Hello everyone. Welcome back to the SWAM NPTEL course on Mathematical Geophysics, Module 1, Basic Concepts, Lecture 4, Theory of Fields. In this lecture, the following concepts are being covered. The concept of a field such as the gravitational and magnetic fields, which we have already discussed as examples from the geophysical context. We would be looking into the fundamental aspects of the theory of fields, its classification, and the proper mathematical definition of such fields. Next, we will look into the properties of conservative and non-conservative fields, which are the major broad divisions of the fields which are applicable to geophysical aspects. Then we will summarize by comparing and contrasting these conservative and non-conservative fields. Let us begin. First, we will look into the concept of a field. What is a field? The field is a mathematical concept which is partly abstract but can be understood with practical examples. These practical examples hail from our day-to-day life as well as scientific applications. So, a field is an abstract concept with distinct interpretations depending upon the context. These contexts can range from physics, chemistry, and geophysical applications in particular. The concept of a field represents a quantity or a property of the system at each point in space which is varying continuously. Simply put, a field can be described as a single valued function in mathematical terms. Now, in mathematical concept, the field can be understood as an algebraic structure containing a set of elements and followed by properties such as addition and multiplication which are defined for the particular field. For example, the real number field and the complex number fields. So these are examples from pure mathematical concepts. Now, coming to the general physical context, the field can be described as a physical quantity that is well defined at every point in a region of space. The field, the field also can vary in time. Now, based on the type of the data, the field can be of three types, that is scalar, vector, and tensors. The concept of scalars and vectors in relation to fields have already been discussed at the start of this lecture series, which can be recalled from previous lectures. The tensor field is a generalization of the extension of scalars and vectors. We will be looking into it in very brief. The examples of these type of fields are temperature, which is a scalar field, the velocity, which is a vector field, and stress, which is a tensor field. The stress tensor applies to various geophysical contexts and engineering aspects such as strength of materials and deformation. In geophysical perspective, a field represents various properties of the Earth's interior, exterior atmosphere, and the surface, which is essential for interpreting geophysical processes. For example, the geophysical context in which the concept of a field is used can be listed as follows. First, the thermal field, which is a scalar field as discussed previously, represents the temperature distribution in the Earth's interior as well as in the Earth's atmosphere. In atmosphere, the temperature varies as a function of the height. and this variation is the thermal field. Next, the gravitational field, which is encompassing the entire planet and it spreads from the center of the Earth to infinity, is considered as a vector field. It represents the gravitational force exerted by the planet Earth and also equally applies to various other planetary bodies with mass. The third example is of the stress field, which is a tensorial field, and this is used for studying earthquakes and tectonic plate motions in context of plate deformations, stresses occurring when plates merge or diverge. The stress field also develops when an earthquake occurs, and that is dissipated throughout the volume of the earth. We will look into the detailed classification and definition of the fields next. So first of all, the basis of classification is to be determined. So based on the interaction mechanism of a field with energy, work or path dependencies, the fields can be classified. So the basis is the energy or work done and path independence or dependence. So the field is broadly classified into two broad classes such as the conservative and non-conservative fields. The conservative fields have the property that the work done by a force to displace an object in this particular type of field is independent of the path taken. For example, the gravitational field, the electric field, and the pressure field. This can be understood from the diagram as shown here. If a mass moves from the point A to point B using two different paths as shown here, for a conservative field, the work done by the force under which influence the mass is moving is the same. It does not change because of the change in the path undertaken. Next, we will look at the classification and definition of fields. The fields can be classified based on the interaction mechanism of the field on the basis of the energy or work done and path dependencies. This leads to the broad classification of conservative and non-conservative fields. The conservative fields, as shown here, is defined as the fields which have the property. The conservative fields, as shown here, can be described as the fields where the work done by a force to displace an object inside the field becomes independent of the path taken. The work done only depends on the initial and the terminal points. Let us consider 2 points A and B. If these 2 points are in a conservative field, the work done to move an object from point A to point B along any path, two of which are shown here, remains the same. The work done only depends upon the location of point A and B. For non-conservative fields, this does not hold true. In non-conservative fields, the work done by the force to displace an object from point A to point B is a function of the path undertaken. So look at the diagram where the points P and Q are separated by a distance with two paths which can be used to move an object from point P to point Q. In the case where P and Q lie in a non-conservative field, the work done would depend on the path undertaken. Now, why we have these two divisions? These divisions are necessary to differentiate the simplicity of physical problems. This division enables us to understand physical problems from fundamental perspectives and with additional complexities due to natural phenomena. The natural occurring constraints often lead to non conservation, while fundamentally conservative fields can describe the aspects of physical problems to a large extent. Thus, conservative fields simplify physical problems by enabling energy conservation and scalar potential analysis. On the other hand, non-conservative fields often require additional considerations, constraints, and calculations of dissipative forces or time-dependent forces which do not conserve energy or involve transfer of energy. Hence, the path dependencies. Now, in geophysics, the fields which are commonly occurring such as the gravitational field, magnetic field, are potential fields or conservative fields. The gravitational fields is used in a branch of geophysics known as geodesy. It is used to determine the geoid, to study the mass distribution and internal structure of the Earth. We will discuss more about such quantities such as the geoid and various properties of the mass distribution in further lectures. In the context of magnetic field, the geophysical applications are to explore minerals and hydrocarbons, the naturally occurring geomagnetism features, and the study of paleomagnetism involving rock magnetism and minerals which are magnetic in nature. The seismic velocity fields are also vector fields which are widely used and studied in geophysical applications. These velocity fields are obtained using propagation of seismic waves, and seismic wave propagation inherently encounter dissipation. The seismic velocity fields are used to image the Earth's interior structure, earthquake hazard assessment, and other aspects of the deep regions of the planet. Similarly, the thermal field is used to explore geothermal reservoirs and the thermal evolution of the planet inside the core and the mantle. The thermal field also encounters dissipation to various other forms of energy and hence becomes a non conservative field in the context of geophysics. Now, let us have a look at the properties of conservative fields in detail. As we have seen earlier, the conservative fields offer path independence. This can be represented mathematically as the work done by a force F becoming zero, shown by this formula, which gives the integral of the work done over a closed loop as equal to 0. A conservative field is irrotational. The irrotationality of a conservative field can be indicated as the curl of the force going to 0. The curl is a vector operation which we have discussed in previous lectures. The curl of a force going to 0 essentially means that the field has a characteristics which is different from rotational fields. The next property of a conservative field is that there exists a scalar potential function f such that the force can be expressed as a gradient of that function. This is the scalar potential function V. The gradient operation on the scalar potential function results in the vector quantity, which is the conservative force field. In geophysics, conservative fields are the gravitational field, which can be represented as G equals to minus of the gradient of phi. Here, phi denotes the gravity potential and its gradient gives the gravitational field. The next is the pressure field in a fluid system. The pressure gradient, as shown here, equals the weight of the body which is above the point under consideration. This is the hydrostatic pressure gradient. This is applicable for geophysical studies such as the geothermal exploration. Another conservative field in geophysics is the thermal field. The thermal field also can be expressed in terms of a gradient such as the heat flux, which is equals to minus of K multiplied by the gradient of temperature. Here K is the conductivity of the material and Q is the heat flux. The thermal field is used to understand the evolution of the temperature and heat transfer or energy transfer inside the Earth's core and mantle throughout the history of the planet from its beginning. Next and final is the fluid velocity field. The fluid velocity field in two dimensions can also be represented as a gradient of phi. Here, the potential function phi is called a stream function. So the velocity field can be obtained as the gradient of the stream function. This sort of analysis in geophysical applications is abound in groundwater exploration using Darcy's law. Now moving on to the properties of non-conservative fields along the same lines, we will be discussing the various aspects. First, the path dependence. This is in contrast to conservative fields. So here the path dependence can be mathematically described as this shows that the line integral of a force along a closed loop is not equal to 0. Essentially, the work done is non-zero. The field is also rotational. A non-conservative field is rotational, indicated by the curl being non-zero. Unlike conservative fields, the scalar potential function does not exist. This, bec- this makes the analysis of non-conservative fields much more difficult compared to conservative fields. In geophysical context, the non-conservative fields are the time-varying magnetic field, which is given by the curl of the electromotive force E equals to minus the time derivative of the magnetic field B. This time-varying magnetic field undergoes magnetic dissipation and is converted to heat energy or other forms of energy. In geophysics, this magnetic field variation in time is used in various applications such as geomagnetic secular variation and electromagnetic methods for mineral exploration. The second type of non-conservative fields in geophysics are the viscous forces. This is denoted by F equals to minus eta Laplacian of the velocity field vector. Now the viscous force is dependent on eta, which is the viscosity of the material. The viscous forces are applicable to various geophysical fluid flows such as flows in porous media and in groundwater exploration. In particular, the flows in porous media encounter small spaces where the viscous forces becomes of paramount importance and are significant. Now, let us look at the differences between conservative and non-conservative fields from both mathematics and geophysical contexts. In mathematical perspective, the conservative fields and non-conservative fields are differentiated in terms of the three quantities shown here. First, the existence of curl. Conservative fields do not have a resultant curl, whereas the non-conservative fields possess a finite curl of the field, indicating its rotational character. Next, the conservative fields have the existence of scalar potential, while such potential functions do not exist for non-conservative fields. Third, the energy is conserved for conservative fields, while for non-conservative fields, the energy is transferred in different forms. Apart from the mathematical aspects, it is important to understand the geophysical context and how, in that context, conservative and non-conservative fields differ. We are going to have a look at these five geophysical applications in context of differentiating conservative and non-conservative fields. The gravitational field is used. The gravitational field is used to study the steady and static fields of the Earth, use while non-conservative fields in the gravitational context are used for gravitational interactions with dissipation of energy, for example, tidal energy in oceans. In the geomagnetic field context, Conservative fields are used in crustal magnetization of static magnetic field in permanent magnetized rocks. The non-conservative fields occur in non-static main magnetic field, which is resulting from the geodynamo action. In seismic and seismological aspects of the geophysical applications, the conservative fields are appropriately used to describe the elastic rebound theory in earthquake seismology, while non conservative fields are used in inelastic medium, attenuation, and scattering of seismic waves. In the context of various thermal processes which occur in the planetary systems, conservative fields are abound, such as heat conduction, geothermal gradient, and magma chamber cooling, and etc. While the non conservative fields occur in heat convection and dissipation systems, where the thermal energy of the earth gets dissipated and results in various other forms of energy. Finally, in geophysical fluid dynamics, conservative fields occur in non dissipative laminar flows that drive plate tectonics and interaction among the plates. The non conservation occurs when dissipation is involved, resulting in turbulent flows. The non conservative fields occur in dissipative turbulent flows, which have a high contribution of viscous dissipation and transfer to heat energy. Such flows occur in the Earth's outer core and atmosphere and oceanic circulations. Also in mantle convection, where the typical viscous values are very high, resulting in high dissipative forces and non-conservation of energy. From this lecture, we obtain the following conclusions. First, in terms of data interpretation, understanding the differences between conservative and non-conservative fields is very important for accurate interpretation of various geophysical data. Secondly, modeling and inversion. Conservative and non-conservative fields require different modeling strategies. The inversion approaches are also different for conservative and non-conservative fields. This impacts the obtained results and the understanding of the relevant geophysical phenomena in a great way. Finally, in the geophysical exploration and characterization, the distinction between the conservative and non-conservative fields helps the geoscientist design more effective strategies for exploration which are cost effective and safe and characterize the subsurface accurately. These are the references which can be used to understand the properties of fields in a more detailed manner. Thank you.